8 shots. I counted every single one as they hit me. The first one spun me sideways. The second dropped me to my knees. By the fifth, I could not feel my legs anymore. By the eighth, the world had gone quiet, like someone had turned down the volume on the entire universe. I remember thinking, very clearly, that this was it. This was where my story ended, face down in the dirt of a planet that was not mine, fighting a war that humanity was losing. Then there was nothing. No pain. No sound. Just a long, black silence. And then I opened my eyes. I was not in the dirt anymore. I was lying on something soft, something that glowed faintly under my back like a bed made of light. The air smelled sweet, almost like honey, but underneath that sweetness was something sharp and strange, something that did not belong to Earth. My uniform was gone. My wounds were gone too. Where 8 bullets had torn through my body, there was only smooth skin, warm to the touch, like the injuries had never happened at all. I sat up fast, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The room around me was massive, with walls that curved upward like the inside of a shell. Soft blue light pulsed from veins running along the walls, like the whole room was breathing. There was no door that I could see, only a smooth opening at one end, covered by something like a curtain of living tissue. This was not a hospital. This was not a prison cell either. This felt like a throne room. My name is Daniel Whitfield, and 3 days ago I was a soldier fighting for what was left of the human resistance on a planet called Vera 9. We were losing that fight badly. The enemy we faced was not human. They were an insectoid species, tall and armored, moving in perfect coordination like a single mind controlling 1,000 bodies. We called them the Hive. They called themselves nothing we could understand, because they did not speak. They simply acted, all together, all at once, guided by something at the center of it all that none of us had ever seen. Until now, apparently. I swung my legs off the glowing bed and tried to stand. My body worked perfectly, which made no sense at all. I should have been dead. I had felt myself dying. I remembered the exact moment my vision went dark. There is no coming back from that, not without machines, not without months of recovery. Yet here I was, standing on my own 2 feet, healthier than I had been in weeks. I turned in a slow circle, studying the room, looking for anything I could use as a weapon or an exit. There was nothing sharp, nothing metal, nothing that looked like technology at all. Everything in this place seemed to be grown rather than built, like the entire chamber was alive. Then the curtain at the far end moved. I froze. Every instinct in my body told me to run, but there was nowhere to run to. So I stood my ground, fists raised, ready for whatever walked through that opening. What came through was not what I expected. She was tall, taller than any Hive soldier I had fought before, with a body that shimmered between deep purple and black depending on how the light hit her. She moved slowly, gracefully, like water flowing across stone. Her eyes were large and dark, but there was something in them that looked almost curious. Not hostile, not cold, curious. I had seen enough Hive soldiers to know their armor, their weapons, their brutal efficiency in combat. This was different. This creature radiated a kind of quiet authority that made every hair on my body stand up. I did not need anyone to tell me who she was. I already knew. I was standing in front of the Queen. She stopped a few feet away from me and tilted her head, studying me the way a scientist might study something they had never seen before. I held my breath, waiting for her to attack, waiting for guards to pour in through that opening and finish what 8 bullets had started. Nothing happened. She just kept looking at me. Then, in my mind, not through my ears but somewhere deeper, I heard a voice. It was not words exactly, more like feelings shaped into meaning. You should not exist. I stumbled back a step, shocked. I had never heard of the Hive communicating like this with a human before. As far as anyone in the Resistance knew, they did not communicate with us at all. They fought us. They studied us. They took our people away and we never saw them again. But no one had ever said the Queen could speak inside your head. I found my voice, rough and shaking. What do you mean, I should not exist? Her dark eyes narrowed slightly, and the feeling in my mind sharpened. 8 wounds. Fatal wounds. Your body should have stopped. It did not stop. I understood then. She was not talking about me existing in her chamber. She was talking about me existing at all, after what had happened to me on that battlefield. I did not have an answer for her, not one that made sense in words. I could only tell her the truth. I do not know why I am alive. I felt myself dying. I remember it. The Queen moved closer, and despite every warning bell going off in my head, I did not step back. Something about her presence made running feel pointless, like trying to outrun the tide. She reached out one long, elegant limb and touched my chest, right where one of the bullets had struck me. Her touch was warm, almost gentle. "Your kind heals wrong," she said inside my mind. "Too fast, too much. It should not be possible." I finally understood what was happening here. This was not a prison. This was not punishment. I was a specimen. Somehow, somewhere on that battlefield, her soldiers had collected my body, expecting a corpse, and instead found something that refused to stay dead. That thought should have terrified me more than it did. Instead, a strange kind of anger rose up in my chest. "You brought me here to study me," I said, like I am some kind of experiment. The Queen tilted her head again, and I felt something like amusement pass through the connection between us. "You are the first of your kind we have kept whole. The others we studied did not survive the process." That hit me harder than any of the 8 bullets had. Somewhere out there, other soldiers from my unit, other people I might have known, had been taken and studied, and had not made it. I was the exception. I was the one who had refused to die on command, refused to die in the way her science expected. I clenched my fists, fighting back the wave of grief that threatened to break through my careful control. I could not let her see how much that information cost me. I needed to stay sharp. I needed to understand exactly what kind of situation I was standing in. "Why keep me alive at all?" I asked. "Why not just take me apart like the others?" The Queen's dark eyes studied me for a long moment before she answered. "Because you are wrong, and wrong things must be understood before they can be used or ended." There it was, the real reason. I was not safe here. I was valuable, which was a different kind of danger entirely. Valuable things get kept alive only as long as they remain useful, and the moment I stopped being useful, or the moment her scientists learned what they needed, I had no doubt they would end me the same way they had ended the others. I needed a plan, and I needed one fast. The curtain at the far end of the room shifted again, and 2 more Hive figures entered, shorter than the Queen but still far taller than me, their armored bodies covered in markings I did not recognize. They moved with the same eerie coordination I had seen on the battlefield, like puppets controlled by a single hand. The Queen's attention shifted toward them, and for a moment, the connection in my mind went quiet, like she was speaking to them in a different way entirely. I could not hear what passed between them, but I could see the tension in the way they moved. One of the smaller figures gestured toward me sharply, almost aggressively. Then the Queen's voice returned in my mind, and this time there was an edge to it. "My commanders want to open you. They believe your body holds a weapon we could use." My blood ran cold. "Open me, not question me, not study me from a distance. Open me, like a book, like a machine to be taken apart piece by piece." "I need you to listen to me," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady even though my heart was slamming against my ribs. "If you take me apart, you will get nothing but pieces. Whatever makes my kind survive is not a part you can cut out and hold up to the light. It is something else entirely." The Queen's eyes fixed on me, unreadable. "Then explain it, now, before my commanders decide for themselves." I took a breath, and for the first time since waking up in that glowing chamber, I understood exactly what kind of fight I was in. Not a fight with guns, not a fight with fists. A fight with words, with ideas, with the only weapon I had left, which was my own mind. I thought about every soldier I had ever known, every person who kept fighting long after the smart thing to do would have been to stop. I thought about my grandfather, who told me stories about wars fought generations before I was born, about people who kept getting back up long after they should have stayed down. I thought about my own squad, bleeding and exhausted, refusing to leave each other behind even when leaving was the only logical choice. "We do not survive because of some hidden weapon inside our bodies," I said. "We survive because we refuse to stop. Your kind moves as one mind, one will, and when that will decides something is finished, it is finished. My kind is different. Each of us decides for ourselves, every single time, whether we are finished or not, and most of the time we decide we are not." The Queen was silent for a long moment. I could feel her presence in my mind, turning my words over like stones, examining them from every angle. "That is not a biological answer," she finally said. "Maybe not," I replied, "but it is the true one." One of the smaller Hive figures made another sharp gesture, clearly impatient, clearly pushing for whatever violent solution their scientists had already prepared. The Queen's attention flickered toward them again, and I sensed an argument happening in whatever silent language connected their entire species. I did not have time to wait for her decision. I needed to give her something more concrete, something her scientific mind could not dismiss as simple stubbornness. "Test it," I said suddenly. The Queen's eyes turned back to me, sharp with attention. "Test what?" "Test whether will matters," I said. Put me in a situation where by every measure I should stop, should give up, should fail, and watch what happens. If I am wrong, you lose nothing. If I am right, you will understand something about my species that no amount of cutting me open will ever show you. It was a massive gamble. I had no idea what kind of test her mind might come up with, and there was a very real chance that whatever she designed would kill me before I ever got the chance to prove my point. But it was better than lying down and letting her commanders open me up like a piece of machinery. At least this way, I had a chance to fight, even if the fight was not one involving guns or fists. The Queen studied me for a long, tense moment, and I felt the weight of her decision pressing down on the entire room. Even the two commanders seemed to sense it, their sharp movements stilling as they waited. Finally, her voice returned in my mind, quieter now, almost thoughtful. Very well. A test. Relief flooded through me, though I knew better than to celebrate too soon. A test from a mind that had never known failure, never known doubt, never known anything but absolute certainty in its own collective will. Could be anything. It could be something designed to prove her commanders right just as easily as it could prove me right. She turned and moved toward the curtain, gesturing for me to follow. I did, my legs still slightly unsteady beneath me, though whether that was from nerves or from whatever process had healed my body, I could not say. We walked through corridors that pulsed with the same soft blue light as her chamber, past openings that revealed glimpses of a world I had never imagined existed beneath the surface of Vera 9. Hive soldiers moved through these halls in perfect silent formation, and every single one of them turned to watch as I passed, their dark eyes following me with something between curiosity and hostility. Eventually, we reached a wide-open chamber, larger than any room I had seen so far, with a floor made of some dark, smooth material that reflected the blue light like still water. At the center of the room stood a single structure, tall and narrow, humming with an energy I could feel in my teeth. The Queen's voice returned in my mind, calm and clinical. This will place your body under conditions that should end it. If your will, as you call it, is real, you will remain. If not, you will not. I did not ask for details. I suspected the details would only make me more afraid, and fear was the last thing I needed walking into whatever waited inside that structure. Instead, I walked forward, ignoring the way my hands trembled at my sides, and stepped through the narrow opening into the humming machine. The moment I crossed the threshold, the world around me changed. The humming grew louder, vibrating through my bones, and I felt a pressure building in the air, pressing down on my chest like an invisible weight. My lungs struggled to expand. My vision blurred at the edges. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn back, to run, to escape whatever this machine was doing to me. I thought about the 8 shots that should have ended me. I thought about waking up anyway. I thought about every person who had ever refused to stay down when staying down would have been so much easier. I am not finished, I told myself, over and over, like a mantra, like a prayer. I am not finished. The pressure grew worse. My vision darkened further. Somewhere distant, I thought I heard the Queen's voice, though I could not tell if it was real or a product of my fading consciousness. I am not finished. The darkness pressed in from every side, and for a moment, I truly believed this was where my story would end for real this time. No glowing chamber to wake up in, no second chance waiting on the other side. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the pressure lifted. I gasped, air rushing back into my lungs, and my vision cleared to find myself still standing inside the structure, my legs shaking but holding, my body bruised but whole. The humming faded into silence. I stumbled forward, out of the narrow opening, and collapsed onto the smooth dark floor, breathing hard, every muscle in my body screaming with exhaustion. But I was alive. I had walked into whatever that machine was designed to test, and I had walked back out. The Queen approached slowly, her dark eyes wide with something I had not seen there before. Not curiosity this time, something closer to shock. "You remained," she said, her voice inside my mind quieter than before. I pushed myself up onto my knees, forcing my exhausted body to hold its position, refusing to let her see me collapse completely. "I told you," I said, my voice hoarse. "We do not stop just because the odds say we should." The 2 Hive commanders who had followed us into the chamber stood in absolute stillness, their sharp, aggressive gestures from before completely gone. Whatever silent language connected them to the Queen had gone quiet, and I sensed, somehow, that this silence was its own kind of fear. The Queen studied me for a long moment before speaking again. "We have never encountered a species that could choose against its own biology. Our will is singular. It does not resist. It does not doubt. It simply is." I managed to climb fully to my feet, swaying slightly but staying upright. That is exactly why we scare you, I said. Not because we are stronger, not because we have better weapons, because you cannot predict us. You cannot calculate the moment we will stop fighting, because sometimes we never do. The chamber fell into a silence that felt heavier than anything I had experienced since waking up in that glowing bed. The Queen's dark eyes held mine, and for the first time since this entire encounter began, I felt something shift between us. Not friendship, not trust, but something like respect, cold and careful, the kind that exists between two forces who have just learned they cannot fully understand each other. Finally, the Queen spoke again, and her voice carried a weight I had not heard from her before. You will not be opened. You will not be taken apart. What you carry cannot be removed and studied separately, because it is not separate from you at all. Relief washed through me, so intense that my knees nearly buckled again, though this time not from exhaustion. What happens now? I asked. The Queen turned slightly, gesturing for her commanders to withdraw, and they did, moving back through the curtained opening without another sharp gesture between them. Now, she said, we decide what your kind means for the future of this war, not as specimens, not as enemies to simply erase, as something we must understand before we decide anything at all. It was not a promise of peace. It was not a promise of anything, really, except a pause, a moment of consideration where before there had only been calculated destruction. But after everything that had happened since I opened my eyes in that glowing chamber, a pause felt like more than I could have hoped for. I thought about my squad, about the resistance still fighting somewhere beyond these walls, unaware that I was even alive. I thought about the soldiers who had been taken before me and had not survived whatever process the Hive scientists had used on them. I thought about the 8 shots that had ended my life on that battlefield, and the strange, impossible chain of events that had brought me here instead of into whatever comes after death. I did not know what would happen next. I did not know if the Queen's commanders would eventually convince her to change her mind, or if this fragile understanding between us would hold. I did not know if I would ever see another human face again, or if I was destined to spend whatever remained of my life as a curiosity in an alien world beneath the surface of a planet that was never meant to be my home. But I was alive. Against every rule the Queen's kind understood about death and endings, I was standing on my own 2 feet, breathing, thinking, choosing. I had died once already that day. Whatever came next, I decided, standing there in that strange blue-lit chamber, surrounded by a species that had never known doubt until it met mine, would simply be one more thing I refused to let finish me.